Hey everybody, Tiki Tech Guy here. Today we're going to be talking about virtualization technologies that we can use in our virtual lab. So you decided that you want to make a home lab. Well, guess what? You're in for a lot of money spent, late nights, tons of frustration, but home labs in the end are one of the great ways to learn. They're very rewarding. So let's get to it. So a friend of mine once said that virtualizing servers is like taking the spirit of the server, the soul of the server out and moving it into another server. And you know what? That's lame. We can do better than that. Let's do better. All right. So let's pretend that you want to start a business. So all the overhead that goes into getting a business, and then you tack on the building expense. Let's pretend that you make widgets, and you make widgets for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Well, that's Monday through Friday. You've got 20 hours where the building's just sitting there empty, and on the weekends it's completely empty. You're not using it at all. So you've got heating, cooling, maintenance, all that money that is going into that building for nothing. We can do this more efficiently. Let's think of the mall scenario. Malls have different units. The building of the mall itself, the heating, cooling, everything is all shared by all the different stores that go into the mall. So now you've got all these services that are running within the same building to keep costs and everything down. It's the same scenario whenever you think of servers. In a data center, if you've got a server sitting there that's only utilizing 30% of the hardware, you're still paying to cool the server, to cool the data center, the electricity, all of that stuff, the maintenance on that server. Let's pretend that you've got 3 of them. Wouldn't it be wise to take all 3 of those servers and put them on the same hardware? If they're only using 30%, put them on the same hardware, and then they're using about 90% of that server, just paying for one maintenance contract, paying for less cooling of the data center and everything. Of course it's going to be better. So that's what the idea of virtualization is. It's trying to get all your resources into one to make it cheaper. But then it's beneficial to us as far as home labs, because now we don't have to have a data center worth of servers sitting there. Like whenever I first started doing this, I had 8 or 9 computers that were fired up that each did a certain thing, and they didn't do it that often. It's just whenever I needed to learn. Now with virtualization, I can turn these on and off whenever I need to, and I've only got 1 computer sitting there. So let's dive into the different types of virtualization available. Type 1 hypervisor is where you install the virtual operating system or the virtual operating system or the virtual layer directly onto the hardware. The benefit of this is there's nothing else to get in the way. It's just the machine. The virtual layer is talking directly to the machine, and you've got your virtualization nice and clean, like laid out there. There's no overhead or anything like that, or very little overhead. And since you're installing the virtual layer directly onto the machine, this is also known as bare metal installation. So type 2 hypervisors. Type 2 is something, let's pretend that you've got a computer at home, and you're just kind of, you want to tinker. Let's say you want to install Linux. So you have your operating system here. Let's say you're running Windows, and you install some virtualization software on top of it, and now you can run Linux within Windows. Really cool. You don't have to format your PC and install Linux directly on it. You can turn Linux on and off whenever you want to. It goes the opposite way for, for parallels for Mac. If you want to run a Windows operating system within Mac, there's all sorts of options available. So for your home lab, one of the questions I get is, which VMware platform should I use? Well, that depends. What does your lab look like? If you're somebody who just wants to use a hobby, like maybe a couple nights a week or something, you want to fire up a Windows Server operating system and just kind of tinker around a little bit, you probably want to stick to this. This is the Type 2 that we talked about earlier. So this is going to be your home PC with Windows installed. You're going to install VMware Workstation, Virtual PC, Oracle VM, some of these, and there are others available. These are just examples. You're going to install that on your home workstation. From there, you can install different operating systems into VMware Workstation, Virtual PC, whatever the hypervisor is, and you can turn them on and off as you please. If you're a little bit more hardcore, you want to install like a full lab, you want to have something dedicated, so you know, like, this is everything contained, this is everything I need, it's all in one box, it's, you have a little bit more control over it, maybe you need some more resources than what your PC has, you've got a dedicated server, PC, whatever, sitting out there, then you're going to want to install ESXi, Hyper-V, any of these listed, and of course there are more out there. But really, it really does depend on what you have and what you're looking to get into. If you're a hobbyist, I would say stick with just a Type 2 virtualization. If you're really wanting to get into it and have like a full-out home lab, then go ahead and purchase a dedicated server, dedicated hardware to run this. So my recommendation, and this is just my personal recommendation, and you can fight me in the comments or whatever, I don't care. I like VMware stuff. Why? Because it's the industry leader. Like they just are. I'm not saying that others aren't doing great jobs here and there, whatever. It's just they're one of the best in my opinion. This is all my opinion. Also, the nice thing about let me get my laser pointer. The nice thing about ESXi is if you're running it at home, like more than likely the data center at whatever work you go to or jobs you're applying for or whatever, they're going to have ESXi running in their data centers as well. So it'd be really nice to be familiar with that whenever you walk into the environment. They could be running other stuff, but most of the places I've seen run VMware. So this is just my opinion. Feel free to use anything else. It's just, for me, I like VMware Workstation if I'm using a PC, and I use ESXi on my dedicated hardware. I actually have both running in my labs. Next, I get asked this question quite a lot. How many VMs can I run in my home lab? Again, it depends. So it depends on what you have. What kind of hard drive do you have? What kind of RAM do you have? What CPU have you got running in there? All these things go into figuring out exactly how many VMs you can run on your infrastructure. And we'll just go through an example of this. Let's say that these are all the VMs that you want to install. So you've got a couple. Let's get the laser pointer back out. You've got a couple lightweight ones here. Let's say those are, like little Linux boxes or something. And then you get a couple Windows workstations. And let's say that these are a couple, domain controllers or something like that. This is just an example. So look at the RAM look at the cores that you have on your CPU on your computer. And I'm just using a computer for this example. It'll translate to a server, whatever. So you've got 16 cores. All right. So if we turned on every single one of these, if we add them up real quick, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 cores. So as far as the CPU goes, you're A-okay. We're good. You can fire them all up. That's fine. All right. Now let's get into hard drive. You've got a terabyte hard drive. Add these all up real quick. They're all 560 gig of hard drive space. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. You can install them all in there. You're good to go. Your hard drive is like, all right. So this is the thing that gets most of people. You get 16 gig of RAM. 2, 4, 4, 8. That's a lot of RAM. That's 28 gig of RAM. 28 gig of RAM. So if you fire all of these up at once, your RAM is going to just go on fire. It's not recommended. Do not do this. It will not work. You can, there may be some contention or ballooning and stuff like that happens, but in the end, you're just heading for disaster. Don't do it. So let's pretend that you have this lab still, and you still want to use, you still want to utilize it. You don't want to upgrade. You don't have the money for upgrading. Trust me, I've been there. There have been times that I've had to do this, and this is one of the tricks that I use. So what I do is, if I know that I need one domain controller and one workstation and one Linux box to get the job done, to whatever I'm doing, that's only going to utilize 14 gig of RAM. And true, that's only going to give you 2 gig of RAM for your operating system. And so it's not going to, as soon as you turn it on, it's not going to consume all 4 gig of RAM of that, but that's just the amount that it can go up to. So you just need to be aware of those limits. But I would feel comfortable, and I've done this before, fire these up. That's fine. You can use your lab. And then, maybe if you've got this one, like let's say this one, and this one, they do a separate function. Turn these off so you regain that amount of RAM, and then turn these on, and now you're balanced out. You just got to find a fine balance between all of it. We can also go through here. I mean, same scenario. This one's pushing it, or this one's not pushing it as hard as the other one was. But let's pretend that you've got 2 Windows and 2 Linux boxes that you need to turn on. Still, you're using 12 gig of RAM. You're still way under what you actually have on the server or on your workstation, so you're fine. So this is perfectly fine to do it. Honestly, I do it all the time. I've got, probably a dozen or so virtual machines installed, and I only fire them up when I need them so I can save resources on my workstation. It is totally a juggling act, and sometimes it can fail, but that's something that you can do. Another thing, people always ask me, they're like, well, I saw this server that's online that, I found it on eBay or something like that, or my company is throwing out a bunch of old servers, and I'm just going to grab one and take it to the house and install it and run it that way. Totally fine. Totally fine. Just letting you know, these servers can be found cheap on the internet, and not particularly this server, but it gets you an idea. But they're going to be noisy. I mean, really noisy. Like, everybody in the house is going to complain. They're going to get hot. So unless you're in a place where it's cool all the time, you just need a little personal space heater, then this is not a real good option. And they're going to waste electricity. I mean, like crazy. So you got to factor all that in before you just go throwing your money into one of these servers. One of the things that I've recommended is, if you're going to do a dedicated workstation or a dedicated server to your virtual lab, if you've got the cash, buy a NUC or something similar to it. If you maybe a little strapped for cash, but you still want a dedicated resource, you can always buy a used PC. Like, make sure it's a beefier PC, but buy a used PC. You can do that. I've done that before as well. Or you can always custom build. I mean, custom build's a great option, and it works. I mean, Terry Crews loves it, so yeah, it's got to be great. The only thing that I want to make sure is you have to do your research. Go onto the VMware hardware compatibility list. Google around. The Home Lab subreddit on Reddit is amazing. Go do some research. Don't just buy anything and bring it into your lab and expect it to work, because you're going to spend all your time being frustrated at this monstrosity that you have, and you're just going to hate it. You're buying this to learn. You're not buying this to be frustrated. So really take the time, do some research. If you have to spend a little bit more money, hold off, spend a little bit more money, do it right the first time. Don't buy garbage and be frustrated. And that's just my 2 cents. Next video we're going to get into is actually getting some servers up and running on our virtual infrastructure. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you guys don't mind, if you could subscribe, hit the like button, leave some comments, that would be awesome. I would really like this community to be interactive. Hit me up for just about anything. I'll try to get back with you as best as I can. But look forward to seeing you at the next video. Thank you.